Hey there, I got a really great video for you guys today. This one's with Brendon Cordell of Weaver Acres in Durham, North Carolina. And Brendon has a ton of experience over decades in horticulture, landscaping, and other businesses. And this is actually the second year of Weaver Acres, and they will be pulling in over $200,000 on 1 acre of farming, and it's unbelievable. We got into a little bit of the numbers later in the video, but really there's some great history with the farm here. It showed a bunch of cool stuff they have going on, and at the end they have a really unique CSA program. And a lot of this I think is very contextual because I know this wouldn't work in a lot of areas, but for where they are, they're doing an amazing job. So enjoy. Brendon, we're out at your farm, Weaver Acres. I've been meaning to connect with you forever. We're not even that far from each other. Thanks for having me out today. I just want to show me around a little bit and all the crazy cool things you got going on here. So maybe you could tell a little bit about how Weaver Acres started and some of those kinds of things.
Yeah, hey, thanks Josh. It's great to have you out. I agree, it's taken too long to get you guys out here. But yeah, so Weaver Acres farm is a traditional market garden. We are basically a 1 acre market garden if you are judging it by bed space and paths and cultivated areas. We're sitting on a little over 3 acres of land in all. That's for the farm stand, the road, the building, future farm store, things like that. But under cultivation, we have about 100-foot beds subdivided down into 50-foot sections. So we run right about 200 50-foot beds. It is an odd-shaped piece of property, so you'll see on the tour there are some areas of the farm where beds may be a little bit shorter than that, where we were filling out odd corners and things. But yeah, Weaver Acres Farm, we started in April of 2019, so I guess a little over a year ago, with groundbreaking out here. At that time, this was all fields from front to back. We had moved out to the adjacent property from the farm February of 2018, and shortly after moving on the property were approached by our neighbors who are members of the Weaver family. And if you're from Durham or Chapel Hill, you probably recognize that name from Weaver Dairy Road, Weaver Street Market, and a couple other places that bear their namesake around town. When we were approached by the family, we were asked if we may be interested in purchasing the parcel next to us, which was an open field that sort of wrapped around our property. And long story short, between negotiations with a couple of the siblings, we've ended up in a situation here where between the 2 parcels, we lease and have a first right of refusal with an option on some of this land. The siblings who I refer to are actually 4th generation Weavers, and we live in what was their parents' home, who were 3rd generation Weavers. Our goal here with starting this farm, and our goal in the continued acquisition of land on this country block here, is actually for the purpose of preserving this property as a historical agricultural site in West Durham County. The Weavers, again, settled this land in 1860. At the time, they owned many hundreds of acres around here, as far as the eye could see, right up to and adjacent to a couple of the other large family farms that were in the area. And then slowly, over the generations, they phased out of agriculture and slowly phased out of land ownership by selling off parcels as it was, cut through by roads or other landmarks.
So tons of local history here, and you guys are preserving it as agricultural land. Very, very cool.
That's right. We are starting the process of preserving it as agricultural land out here. This area of West Durham County is just about 5 minutes from Duke University, about 10 minutes to UNC. We're surrounded by an area known as Duke Forest, which is a large forest and wildlife preserve owned by Duke University. And given its convenience and location here in the Triangle, which is the Raleigh-Durham Chapel Hill area for viewers that may not be familiar with this region, this is a relatively pricey area of the Triangle as far as real estate values, land values, and things like that are concerned. So not only is it our goal to preserve this area as an agricultural property, but we chose to go ahead and restart the agricultural use of the farm, really just to be able to monetize the property enough to pay the taxes, purchase the property, and preserve it without the need to monetize it through development or further subdivision and sale.
All right, so we're standing at the entrance of your farm here, and this is where your CSA pickup is, and we'll get into more of that later. I know there's a pickup later today, we'll show that, but when you walk in here, I see lots of really cool like beds of flowers, and you got some blueberries and some perennials. And so what was sort of the inspiration behind this?
I guess just like everybody starting a farm, you know, when we were getting rolling, we were looking at things and saying to ourselves, well, you know, when you start, you want to go ahead and get those tree crops in and some of those perennials and fruiting crops in so that they have time to grow and develop. However, it was important to us that we start integrating tree crops, perennial crops, and more importantly, flowers and perennials for both the aesthetic purposes, the benefits to pollinators and beneficial insect populations, as well as just, you know, as a sort of a consumer-facing side of the farm. So this back entrance is where the customers come in. When we were running a farm stand that was open to the public in pre-COVID times, you know, folks would come in here for the farm stand. Now it's just for our CSA pickup and public sales once a week, a couple times a week for CSA pickup, and just important to us to have some color on hand.
This is one of the beds near the entrance to your farm, and there's so much cool interplanting going on here with different heights and stuff. Can you just talk about what you planted this year?
Yeah, so we had some thyme and sage planted on this side of the bed. The cosmos, which are pretty much cooked just from lack of harvesting, deadheading. We've had an inordinate amount of rainy gray weather through spring this year, and just consistent daily thunderstorms that have been really hard on, you know, the more delicate items like flower heads and things like that. So we had some dwarf apple trees that we installed year one so they could start maturing as quickly as possible. And then we knew pretty early on we would play with perennials and flowers in these back beds because it is the first thing that people see when they're entering from this side. Yeah.
I just love the diversity. I love the vertical stacking here.
Thank you. Yeah, and
you probably learn a lot after the first year.
The sage blooms beautifully in early spring, and between that giving way to the annual flowers, you know, we really saw a lot of pollinators being drawn in early in the season, and that's kind of what you want, is before the bee population is really built up, you want to see some of those early season native bees and local honeybees over here foraging and making pollination happen. So we just wanted some habitat and you know, perennials and flowers for all the great functions they attribute to on the farm.
Brendon, you have a couple of tunnels here. Talk a little bit about what's going on behind you.
So yeah, we've got some of the Farmer's Friend tunnels, which are real popular with us market gardeners. We liked the Gothic shape, not for snow shedding, but just for a little extra air volume and height. And we're doing our tomatoes, cucumbers, some peppers, and eggplants all in the tunnels. And for the most part with our tomatoes, we're going with the lean and lower system.
Cool. Awesome production. You're also running, looks like drip and overhead in the same tunnel.
That's right.
Anything else unique about what's going on here? I see like just insane production. It looks awesome.
Well, the main thing, I guess, you know, for most of us that are doing this commercially is, you know, first and foremost, variety selection is key. And then we decided to make sure that we used grafted tomatoes in all of our tunnels and order those through a commercial greenhouse producer banner greenhouses, which a lot of people are familiar with, particularly in the Carolinas. And we are growing for cherry tomatoes, Torrangina, Sakura, and Edox in our tunnels. And then for our slicing tomatoes are growing Monero, B-Orange, Big Beef, and Big Dina for our 4 slicing tomatoes. And the Sakura and Torrangina have just been crazy productive. But we do have some severe issues here in the Carolinas with both disease and pest pressure. So I think we've spoken about in a couple other segments already. We had a 3-week period in late May where we had so much rain and gray weather for
we got like 10 inches.
10 inches in 2 weeks, and the sun didn't come out for 2 straight weeks. And what happened was the entire ground hit a level of saturation where even our tunnels saturated with water through the process of, I guess, capillation or whatever they call it, where horizontally we had water wicking into the soil in the tunnels. And through some testing and research here recently, I found out that we have a severe problem with bacterial wilt. This is a bacteria that lives in the soil, affects a lot of solanaceous crops. It can affect potatoes, which ours came out early enough to not be an issue. It affects tomatoes. It's notorious in the cucurbits like cucumbers when you see plants just drop for no reason from the top to the bottom. This particular bacteria blocks the capillaries in the plant, and it can't uptake water or nutrients, and the whole plant will otherwise go from looking great to wilted from top to bottom, and it just drops like a rock.
Is that from just too much moisture?
Too much moisture will exacerbate the issue and create an ideal condition for the bacteria to reproduce. And what actually happens is it enters the plant through little parts that are damaged, either in the transplant and handling process or from pest damage. And so despite having varieties that are selected for greenhouse production and having them on grafted rootstock, which we used Armada on all of our grafted tomatoes this year, we have them holding on pretty well, but we've dealt with a great deal of loss throughout our tunnels.
All right, so we're sort of in between your tunnels here, and talk a little bit about the layout here, because it's like you got 4 beds in the tunnel, then you got 6 beds out here, and maybe talk a little bit about the crops you got going on out here too.
Sure. Well, a couple of things. One, a lot of what you see laid out now is dictated by my original irrigation layout. So we have a run of wobblers every 5 beds throughout the farm, and the purpose of that is to provide head-to-head coverage in our irrigation system, which means we can actually just run every other block of wobblers if we're just trying to reach from one rain shadow to the next. So what happens is when we laid out the farm, we ultimately were laying out blocks of 10 beds in each location, and then when it came time to place the tunnels on the farm, which we had already started farming, laid out our beds, installed our irrigation, we saw the video that you had done with Casey and Tori down at Honeytree, and I really liked the way he had it set up, where for each of his 10 blocks he had 4 under cover for a tunnel, and then an adjacent 6 beds in the block next to that. And that works for us for a couple reasons. One, I like being able to segregate what's happening in the tunnel and what's happening in the field beside it a little bit, while still doing the same crops. So as an example, my earliest successions of cucumbers and peppers could go in the tunnel, and then my later succession, as the last frost passed, could go in the adjacent block. At the same time, we liked doing 4 beds in a tunnel and then a block of 6 beds, because when we add more tunnels in the future, and I cover this row of sprinklers with another tunnel, that will leave us with a bed in between each tunnel, so that we can either use that space to plant, you know, beneficial hedgerows or more perennial crops, or just have an area to absorb all of that runoff from the tops of the tunnels.
So super smart. I mean, obviously setting up the irrigation to build your farm around, I've talked about that a lot, sort of dictates how your beds are set up, and this is a perfect example of that, and the future planning too of dropping in extra tunnels. I love it.
Definitely. And yeah, longer term, we'll have most of the farm covered with caterpillar tunnels. They're just great bang for the buck. But what we need to do is really finish some of the other bigger picture items on the to-do list before we just continually receive shipments of Farmer's Friend tunnels, because it just creates another task on the to-do list that would be better spent come September, October.
Okay, and what's going on here? This is a cool interplant.
Yeah, so you know, peppers take forever to get going, so we find that particularly field peppers are a great place to utilize interplanting techniques like you see on the No-Till Growers channel and things like that. So this season we had some lettuce and some alliums ready for us when it came time to plant our field peppers. So what we did is we interplanted some with lettuce and some with leeks, and actually some with green onions. The lettuce and green onions have subsequently come out. And what's left here is our leeks, which we're not in a great area for growing leeks into the summer. It's a better crop in our area for coming out of summer and throughout the fall. But some of them are sizing up better than others and coming along. And by this point now, this is a sweet pepper block, so our horn peppers and shishitos, lunchbox and bells are all starting to color up and become productive out here. So they're giving us peppers, and the interplant has long since come out. And as you can see, we don't really worry too much about what pattern fabric we're using in spots. If we don't have any more of a particular type or pattern ready, we'll use whatever is available just to keep the weeds down and plant through, and then we may or may not interplant through some of those spare holes. All right, so this is our second caterpillar tunnel. This one was intended to be our cucumber, pepper, and eggplant tunnel. The crops in here date back to early spring. We're a few successions into our cucumbers at this point, and our peppers are, you know, we've had varying levels of success in this tunnel this year. Pest pressure as well as bacterial wilt became a problem pretty early on in the year, again all stemming from that rainy period in mid to late May. Peppers were very slow to get rolling this year because we had really persistent cool temperatures all the way throughout May this year, including 2 frosts that were 2 to 3 weeks after our last frost date. So we're just making the best of it. We have some eggplant planted in the bottom. We have everything in here from Unistar cucumbers, which some people may be familiar with, Corinto and Diva. We have lunchbox peppers and some of our I forget what they're called, those Tasty series or something, like the horn-shaped peppers from Johnny's. They come in, it's an aura, glow, and lipstick mix of red, yellow, and orange. They're like a smaller bell pepper. We've definitely dealt with some pest pressure in here. We've dealt with a little bit of deficiency in our fertility in here. We've dealt with a lot of pest pressure in here, and we've dealt with a lot of disease pressure in here. So lots to learn and lots to improve on when it comes to our cucumber and pepper game, but we continue to forge ahead, and where you have failures on the farm, it can always be made up through overproduction. So we always have a succession B and a succession C and a plan B and C in place for all of our successions, because we are farming and it's the southeast, so it is challenging to say the least during certain periods of the year. So we're standing in our strawberry patch here. We grew a Chandler variety strawberry that we installed last fall so that we could offer strawberries to our CSA and retail crowd this May. They performed really well. They were bearing early in mid-April because of our mild winter and early warm temperatures. And they really did very well all the way through May until that same stretch of gray, rainy weather. As a lot of people know, strawberries loathe staying wet and overwatering. But they performed really well. We got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pints out of here, and from week 1 of our CSA through week 6 or 7 of our CSA, we had strawberries to offer each week, and the customers loved them.
So when did these go on the ground?
These were planted right at the beginning of October last fall. I believe it was the first week of October, and we had intended to pull them immediately when they stopped bearing so that we could swap this entire block out for melons and perhaps even some hard squash, but things just, you know, got ahead of us on other parts of the farm, and you can only get to what you can get to each week. So they're still in here. They're starting to runner out, so we will probably propagate some of our own runners. We will dig, divide, and transplant these strawberries to a new location here later in the summer, early fall, and we will drop a fresh crop of plugs in at the other end of this back 40 for next season.
So this is what you're calling the front 40?
This is the front 40.
Okay, so this is another block, and how big is this area, and sort of what's going on here?
So this is literally 40% of our bed space. We have about 80 to 85 50-foot beds down front. This is an area that gets a little less light in the winter because of some of the surrounding trees, and is a slightly cooler microclimate in the summer due to the south-facing slope and some of the large trees behind this block. So as the sun starts setting in the sky, the shadows really elongate out here on this south-facing slope early, and it's what we transition into for summer production of lettuce, greens, baby root vegetables, and things like that.
Okay, and this is also right on a busy road. You have nice signage up here. This is definitely part of your marketing that people can drive by and grab attention.
This is our main marketing strategy out here. The front of the farm, as well as our home, is on Irwin Road here in Durham, which is a very busy country thoroughfare between Durham and Chapel Hill. Pardon the traffic noise. And
all potential customers, right?
All potential customers, right? We have a great surrounding population. It's a relatively affluent area. We're surrounded by Duke Forest, and as I mentioned before, 5 minutes to Duke University, 10 minutes to UNC, an extraordinary client base and surrounding neighborhoods around here.
All right, this definitely caught my eye, and I know we were talking that this was kind of just thrown together, but I love this sort of mix of ideas and sort of just making things work.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had our sugar snap peas here this spring. We start planting peas in this area of North Carolina right at the first of the year, and we proceeded to plant 3 successions of peas from the 1st of January until the end of February. Those were really good and productive for us, and thanks to the cooler weather we got this spring, they actually produced all the way until late May. What we did after they were done producing was sever all of the plants right along the soil level with hedge trimmers. That allowed the plant to desiccate on the Hortonova netting, and we came in and cleaned down the dried plant material, laid some fresh fabric, and followed right behind with just a final succession of summer crops. And rather than take down the trellises and worry about having to use, wire hoops or some sort of overhead structure, we just went ahead and laid the shade cloth right on top, because by mid-June, when you're planting those late summer successions, they really resent that first couple weeks of full sun when they go in the ground from the nursery to full exposure location like this. And then this time of year in North Carolina, for peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, we run 30% shade cloth over pretty much all of it, over our tunnels, and we'll leave it on the entire time it's growing unless it gets in our way.
Yeah, I just think that a lot of people are using shade cloth on low hoops. That's sort of the standard move out in the field, but I like this because you can actually get in there without having to lift it off.
Yeah, and really this was inspired by Ben Hartman, who has his place, I believe, up in Pennsylvania. He's well known as the author of The Lean Farm and some other books. But I saw on Ben's social media last year over his...
He had like a high tension wire kind of situation.
Over his kale and cooking greens. He was using, it looked like EMT conduit with a tennis ball on top, and sort of pitched a tall circus tent of shade cloth. And I thought, well, that seems sensible for some of our field blocks this year, and perhaps we'll do that. Of course, time constraints lead us to laying wire hoops and shade cloth over sort of low hoops for some of our lettuce and greens. But then when we had the opportunity to just pop this up on the overhead structure that was already in place, that seemed like a sensible way to go, and it allows for enough space where we can work right underneath it. And as with everything covered in shade cloth, it's cooler under there right now than it is out here.
Cool. I recognize the trellis system too.
Yeah. Oh, hey, that's shout out to Satin Hill Farm for popularizing the trellis that you see here. If you haven't caught Josh's video on a trellis to make you jealous, the how-to and all the parts you need are included in that video.
Thanks for the shout out.
Absolutely.
So we're standing in front of a work in progress. This is probably going to be the biggest showpiece of the farm. Tell me a little about what's going on here.
Yeah, so what you see here is a post and beam building. This was built is being built to be not only our permanent farm store, but also our garage storage for tools and equipment on that right wing there. And then the left wing of the building is our wash pack space. And then we have 2 walk-in coolers, which were just built on the inside of the store here. So
this is going to be a store that's open more often than your farm stand now?
Yeah, maybe one additional day. Okay. So instead of just Wednesdays and Thursdays,
will that all transition into here too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll probably expand and be open 4 hours at a time instead of 3. But the farm store is centrally located on the farm by design. We want people to park in the back field. They'll actually walk down a gravel road here, so it'll be all pedestrian traffic, with the exception of our low mobility or handicap customers, where we will have a small turnaround space for some of our elderly or handicapped customers to come and access the store directly from their car. Otherwise, it's going to be all pedestrian traffic. What that does is it forces everybody to sort of get a little farm tour on their way in, so they actually get to see where production is taking place, where the food is grown.
More connected to their food.
Much more connected to the food. And then when they actually go into the farm store, there we'll have kind of your standard farm stand selections of things that we produce, things we aggregate from other local producers, as well as local meats, bread, cheese, dairy, poultry, fowl, jams, jellies, value-add products, things like that. But most of those items will be aggregated from other local producers.
Very cool. A lot of cool stuff going here. I'm gonna make a separate video about this. But essentially you have your farm store, you got your wash station, and your tool storage for the farm, all centrally located.
All in one building, all very much in that hub and spoke model. So right here, kind of center to the back 40 and the front 40, on the top of the hill. And yeah, accessible from each direction. So
and it's gonna be beautiful. You got a CSA pickup going on right now.
We do.
So let's go check that out.
All right, sounds great.
All right, so you were doing restaurant sales, and with COVID, you've switched to a local on-farm pickup CSA. Just talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So like many farms in this area, we found that the restaurants were real easy in. Had some great customers throughout last winter and early this year. Obviously, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit full force, it took about 2 phone calls over the course of 7 days to go from standing orders of $5,000 a month to 0. That required that we very quickly shift into a CSA and retail sales model that, while we had intended to transition into, were forced to accelerate by the COVID-19 pandemic. We quickly built out our website, launched our CSA about a month early, and now run a free choice CSA with on-farm pickup 3 days a week. We also have a membership base here at the farm, so that you don't have to be a CSA subscriber to buy from us. You do need a membership, however. And then for non-members, we have a single day where we're open to the public on Saturdays from 12 to 3. So if you're not a member, you're not a CSA subscriber, you can still come out on Saturdays between 12 and 3 and shop with our members and subscribers.
And it seems like, we're obviously here middle of the day on Saturday, and quite a few people are here picking up their food.
That's right. So as a second-year farm, we had intended to go aggressively at the CSA and retail sales model. We had already been running our farm stand last season, but as a first-year farm, didn't want to enter into the kinds of commitments required to fill a CSA box week in and week out. This season we had intended to offer 100 CSA shares, which would be 100 of our full shares. So because we have a half share and a full share, as long as it broke down to 100 full shares, meaning it could be 50 half shares and 75 full shares, we were pretty committed to filling a CSA of 100 subscribers. Once the restaurants were no longer in the mix and we had all of this extra production, we went ahead and increased capacity on the website to accept up to 200 CSA subscribers and members. And in the first 60 days of launching our website and CSA, reached about 150 CSA subscribers and members. We've since continued to add members and subscribers throughout the season, but it's obviously for a shorter period and a prorated version of the CSA.
Okay, and this is working out for you guys in terms of how much produce and how much money you're able to push through this?
Absolutely. So, you know, we're in an area here that requires our farm be amongst the members of that six-figure farming club. You know, we have kind of high-value land, we have an affluent population in the area, we have a lot of on-farm labor, and a great deal of investment was made in bringing this farm to fruition. And the only way it would work for us financially as the business owners and farmer would be to scale it to the point of running itself, if you will, meaning that, you know, we need to have staff in place to go through the day-to-day workload to fulfill 150 to 200 shares a week. Our shares, or sometimes what we call our harvest bags, which are periodically sold online, is a $30 share of vegetables. So anybody doing the math at home, if we're filling 150 to 180 bags a week, we are producing between $4,500 and $5,400 per week in produce, and that is all picked up in a free choice CSA model. So our customers come out to the farm stand, they receive 10 points of credit. Credit point is worth approximately $3 if you were to translate it dollar for dollar for the retail value of the vegetables. So they come out to the farm stand and they actually select their bag right on the spot. That is assembled for them on the spot out of our display here. We have everything all pre-packaged, ready to go, weighed out in different units. And folks come through and they get whatever they'd like and as much as they'd like. If they just want to fill their 10 points, they can do so. If they want to add additional produce on top of that, they may purchase additional produce on top of their share. And like any other free choice model, if we're growing something that people love, like our strawberries and our sugar snap peas this spring, they can fill their entire share with just strawberries and sugar snap peas. Or we have people right now that are filling their entire share with just tomatoes and peppers. Ultimately, we're going to see 150 to 180 of our customers and members each week, and they are all going to walk away satisfied because the law of averages wins out, and it just shakes out every week where we've got enough of everything to go around.
I love hearing these alternative models because I think this one's fairly unique because you've simplified the process in terms of points, but also you're not putting custom boxes together. You're not aggregating custom orders and packing those boxes like I've heard of a lot of you know, customizable CSAs. But it seems like, you know, you've done the work ahead of time with getting customers, getting the marketing done, and building up the demand here. So it seems like, you know, obviously people are happy with what they're getting, but it's a lot less work on your end.
It really is. And what we did is we did a little bit of research about the farming platforms that are out there. So I'm sure many of your viewers have heard of Farmigo or Harvey or Barn to Door, and a number of these software systems that are really designed to help you manage a customized order flow. But in managing a customized order flow, the expectation from the software is that you use their software as a service. It comes with some sort of nominal percentage fee or monthly charge, even if you're just using a Shopify website. I don't care if it's the $30 version or the $200 version, there's some sort of nominal fee that the business is having to pay month in and month out for that software as a service. And when I looked at the functionality behind all of that software, it was all designed so that people could pre-order their custom share. The farmers could assemble the custom share, and oftentimes it was related to a delivery model where the custom shares are then delivered to a drop point or even to people's individual homes. The final steps in that process for the farmer are so overwhelming and time consuming that many of you who either are doing this for a living or who view a lot of Josh's videos know that they're literally hiring people on a full-time basis to do nothing but manage and assemble orders. What we decided was to go ahead and do that on the spot, a la minute, as a chef would say, right there in the pan, on the fly, where our queue sets up. It's kind of like a Rico ring in that folks get here to pick up their produce. Many people have now been picking up for weeks with us, so they very much know the routine. So you have people come up and very quickly, you know, we assemble their share with whatever they like. They're on their way and we're ready to serve the next customer. We do this 9 hours a week. We pack an average of 150 to 180 bags a week. If you do that math, here every Saturday we see about 60 people in 180 minutes. Makes it a very quick shift. Folks come, they go, they're in, they're out. Everybody's happy. We receive comments and feedback and messages from our customers that say things like, this is the best money they've ever spent. This is the most fun they've ever had grocery shopping. This is the best CSA they've ever been a part of, and things like that. And our goal is not to, you know, draw business from any of the other local CSA farms. Our goal is to provide the most convenient method of shopping with the most choice, the most optionality, and the most flexibility for our customers.
Brendon, thanks so much for having me out today. I'm just blown away by your farm and the business you guys are running here. And, you know, let everyone know now we're going to shoot a couple more videos, so look out for those here on this channel and also at No Till Growers YouTube channel. But how can people follow along with what you're doing, or if they want to get in touch with you?
You can find us online through our website, weaveracresfarm.com. We're also on Instagram at weaveracres and on Facebook at weaveracres. And thanks for all your time today, Josh.
Cool. I'll leave links down below for all that stuff.
Sounds good.
We start over. I usually have more outtakes than the person I'm filming.
Baby.
Yeah. So
and I'm supposed to look at the lens.
you can if you
Okay.
just don't get smacked behind you there.
Okay. Perfect. You need to do that.
Okay. I feel bad sometimes.
Dude, you're the director, man.
You can do it again.
All right. About all that joking.
Yeah.
All right, so think of me like the talent. I'm like your Tom Cruise today without the Scientology, and you can be my Quentin Tarantino without the foot fetish. So you direct me.
Like most good farmers, you're very critical of your work, but it looks beautiful.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's probably just the distance at which you're viewing it.